Hi, welcome to my channel. If you're new, I'm Kisha, and this is my legacy. And if you're returning, hey guys! In this video, I'm going to be going step by step through the criminal process of filing charges against someone who has sexually abused you, and also going into my case as I experienced the process, just to give you a little bit more information. So let's get started. Took a brave girl to try. One of my most asked questions when it comes to me pursuing criminal charges against my stepfather for sexual abuse 22 plus years later, right? A long time, okay? And I happen to have my packet from PAAR still. Pittsburgh actually gets raped, and I knew I had the document somewhere, and I kept it in my car actually, to where it was always with me when I went to each of these different parts of the process, so that I had an idea of what I may have been walking into, even though I did have an advocate who, you know, prepped me for what was to come. It was just a little bit of a reassurance, okay? So what I wanted to do today is take you through the process. Now, disclaimer, each state is different. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, okay? So we have our own set of laws, statutes, etc. when it comes to these types of dealings, okay? And PAAR in itself, it's its own organization, and it has its own way of doing this process and what they offer. I would suggest you contact your local sexual abuse victim advocacy organization so that they can better assist you with your specific questions. Okay, so I have it in my hands. Where it was in my center console in my vehicle. And so it's a little messed up. You know, been through some things, but we're just gonna go over it together for a second. If you would like for me to go through any more of the information that they have, I'll list them off for you real quick, so that if you want to, let me know in the comments. They have their services, PAAR services, common reactions, the legal process, which we'll be going over today, victims' rights, victims' notification, victims' compensation, client information, and more. So let's go ahead and get started into the legal process. And as I'm going through each step, I'm going to also tell you how it was for me, so that you have some idea of the feelings I had experienced during my process. Just a way to give you a better sense of, you know, information, okay? All right, let's go to page 14. Okay. Oh, and also, if you guys want me to go over it, in the legal process, they have the juvenile court process. So if you want me to go over this with you, I could definitely make another video and we could go through it, okay? It's like I know this process just because I went through it, but I want to make sure I'm keeping it as specific as possible as they have it detailed, okay? First things first, there's a sexual assault committed. That's why we're here, okay? That's going to be your first step. Whether it happened recently or a long time ago, your first step outside of, in my suggestion of reaching out to a program like PAAR, would be to go to your local police station. For me, I went to the police station that was in the neighborhood in which I grew up in. I grew up in the same area from 5 till adulthood. So there really wasn't no me having to seek out or trying to locate a police department. I knew exactly where it was. The sex assault unit assigns a detective. Investigation and second victim interview is conducted. Yes. So my instance, after me and my advocate went to my local police station and I gave a detailed report in writing, I did not necessarily need to speak to a what did they call it? A clothed officer or a uniform officer at the time. I did not have to speak to them about what I was there for. I just let them know that I wanted to file charges for sexual abuse I endured 20 plus years ago, right? Just to sum it up. But the details and the graphics, I did not have to speak to anyone at that time. I can't say each department is like this, but in my, situation, that was the case. It was not too long after I filed this statement that I was contacted by the Allegheny County Sexual Victims Unit by 2 detectives. I worked with 2 detectives at the time. This says 1, you may get 1, but I got 2. And I met with them, and I had to sit down, which was very awkward because they were, Caucasian. And in the African American community, there really isn't much trust for the police. So walking in, it was, a little difficult to open up to, first of all, strangers, second of all, men, and then their, race. But I very shortly got over it because they made me feel so welcomed, and they were just wanting to see what was going on with me, and I appreciated that. So now, giving my statement, it was verbal, and then they wrote it out for me. So I began to tell my story. Now, you may feel as if what you're giving is all that you have, which that is okay. But I realized as I'm talking to them and giving my account of what was going on, they would ask me follow-up questions. The follow-up questions are necessary because they know laws that you do not know about. So with that, they were able to get a long list of charges based off the information I gave. So if I can give any advice when it comes to this part of the process, be very detailed, be very open, and do not second guess yourself. I met with the detectives probably a few times after that, but we always kept communication via phone and email. So in that time frame, I'm able to give them information. They're looking for medical records. I had to sign authorizations for that. Child and Family Youth Services. I had an interaction with them during the time that my abuse got out publicly from me telling the doctors at the ER, right? If you haven't seen that video, I'll put the card probably like right here or something. And following that, like, the police did get involved after my abuse got out, after I got the STI from my stepfather at 12. And I also had an interview with CYF or CYS, depending on where you live. And that was all to be documented, which is why they, asked for the release forms. So as this is happening, I have really nothing else to worry about. The detectives are taking everything over for me. So as they're gathering their information, they're asking me different ways that we can get a confession, let's say. And they asked to speak to my mother. Asked me to speak to my mother first. And I didn't really agree with that. They wanted to do like a wiretap situation. I can't lie, I felt like I was on like SVU or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? I felt like, I don't know, it just felt like the movies for me. And the fact that I was very low key. I did not tell anybody outside of like my partner and my children the moves I was making in regards to filing these charges. And that may be another thing as well. Keep it very close to you because you don't know how things are going to turn out. And you don't want anyone getting in your ear to, sway you away from what you would like to do. So back to what was going on. They wanted to wiretap me and have me talk to my mom on the phone. I did not see that as a good way to do it, just for the simple fact of I had not talked to my mother over 6 months before, whenever I confronted her and my stepfather about the abuse I endured as a child, and when I disconnected myself from them. If you guys want a story time on that, I can put one on YouTube. Just let me know in the comments. So I was like, yeah, that's not really gonna look good if I just hit it, you know, call her out of nowhere like,
hey mom, remember, you know, when I was younger? Yeah, him, y'all, yeah, man.
It wasn't gonna work. So what they ended up doing, which is a part of the investigation, which is why I want to give you guys as much information in my case as possible, is that they interviewed my mother. She did not know what she was going to interview for, which is why I wanted them to interview her, because she is not good with her emotions. So if she gets angry, she automatically snaps back, or she can't hold it in. Okay. And I know I'm saying okay a lot, but it's just like, I don't know, like period, you know? I don't know. Maybe I'll edit it out. Maybe I won't. I'm human. So with that being said, they go and they pull my medical records. Can't find them. Okay. They go look for the CYF record. Can't find it. In the hopes of pulling that CYF record would be that my medical records were included in there also. But all we had was my name, a case number, and the date, which corroborated my story, of course, but it was not any solidified information that would tie everything together. Once they talked to my mother, they were able to get the information they needed to get an arrest warrant. Okay, and that is the next step. After filing the criminal complaint, which is what I did, they took it to the DA, and which is the district attorney, and they told them my story. They gave them my information, and they gave them the okay to proceed. So the complaint was filed, and an arrest was made. Once my stepfather was arrested, he had the option of bail. I can go into a story time about what that was like. Yeah. He ended up getting bail, and then he ended up getting bailed out. So he was free while the rest of the trial was happening, or the proceedings were happening. So the next thing that occurred in the process, okay? So we have the sexual assault that happened. The victim, me, you, your supported loved one, chose to report the incident to the police. The police decide whether or not they can investigate it. The charges are filed. There's an arrest made. Next step is called a preliminary hearing. In this part of the process, you are meeting in front of a magistrate. Okay, let me see if they say anything in magistrate, what a magistrate is. They don't. But a magistrate is more so of a local judge. And this is before it gets in front of like the big judge, the criminal judge. And this is the process where it is decided whether or not the charges, some or if all or none, stick. In my situation, I believe there was 8 or 9 charges. I may or may not include them on here, so I'll just move over a little bit because I want to put it in a picture. They all stuck for me. And again, if you would like for me to tell you how that day was in preliminary court for me, I can tell you, no problem. Following the preliminary court, if all your charges or any of the charges move forward, the offender now has to go to sex offender court. During that time, a formal arraignment and pretrial conference are held on the same date. For this particular court hearing, I did not have to attend. That was just for my stepfather to go to plead in front of that judge that I'm here for these charges. I plead, of course he said not guilty because he's trying to buy time. Okay. After that is when things started to get a little hot because I did all of this to get me to this point. Now this is where it started to get real, that he was going to be going away for whatever amount of time, because my stepfather did have a lawyer. Was it a lawyer for sex offense crimes? No, it wasn't. So, but nonetheless, he had a lawyer working on his behalf. So after everything is discussed with the DA, we wait. We waited. Because the next thing that is to come after meeting with the DA and ironing everything out was the option of a plea or a criminal trial. This is where they really want to make sure that you as a victim, survivor, are prepared for what's to come. Most offenders will take a plea deal. But if they are bold in their stance of being not guilty, they will take it to trial. And this is where your courage and your strength really needs to be put into action. Because with a trial, you are going to be reiterating your story again under oath, which it's all under oath, let's be honest, but in front of a bunch of strangers who then decide whether or not they believe you or not. That was something I had to consider, but it was never anything that I was worried about. During this entire process, I personally did not worry about whether he was going to go to prison. It was a matter of when for me. Because throughout this process, the desire to get him incarcerated was never on a vendetta. I had to check myself. It was about accountability for me. It was about him after all these years and skating around the issue and everybody pretending that what happened to me did not happen to me, that he stood in front of a judge and showed who he truly was. And that was a predator. And for him to own up to it. And that's where the plea comes into play. In my case, he of course asked for a plea deal. And I agreed to that. Now the terms of the plea is really something that you need to talk to your DA about, speak to the detectives about, and do not ever settle if you do not feel comfortable with what you're being told. If you feel as if you want to take it to trial, take it to trial. If you chose to do a criminal trial, to do a jury or a non-jury trial where in each case a decision is made. What I can offer anyone in this process, whether you're in it now or you want to go through it, please do not align your healing with the outcome of an investigation. It is bigger than putting them in prison. It's about you and your mental health and your safety moving forward. Again, if anything I went over you want more information on, please feel free to drop me a comment. I am more than happy to give you this information. And I hope I explained it as good as I could based on the fact of, I don't know, I haven't looked at it in a while. So I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Bye guys.